What's up everyone, it's Jack from WhatCulture.com and I'm here with the Fast Count. We're going to change things up slightly. Normally we start with all of this week's WWE news, but this week, because of big news elsewhere, we're going to start off with all the news elsewhere in what I like to call the wacky world of professional wrestling. So strap in, it's going to be a serious one. Now, I'm sure you've been aware, and I'm sure you've seen our reaction video. There was a massive talking point in the middle of this week concerning TNA and the final deletion, the big climactic match between Matt and Jeff Hardy. You probably already know my opinion on this. It's sparked quite a backlash from a lot of you, so I'd just like to address that. First of all, I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. Sorry if it overruns, but here we go. First of all, just want to address everyone who thought the match was genuinely really good. Of course, you're allowed to have your own opinion. Wrestling is entirely subjective. But that doesn't take away my right to disagree with that opinion. I'm allowed to have my own opinion as well. And all I can say is I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was a poor match. I thought the production was awful. And I thought that the booking was intentionally bizarre. I'll get onto that next. But as much as you're allowed your opinion to enjoy it, we're allowed our opinion to disagree with that and say that we didn't enjoy it as well. Then there's the much larger subset of fans who said, yes, we didn't enjoy it as a match, but it was entertaining. You're not looking at it as entertainment. Of course I'm looking at it as entertainment. All wrestling is entertainment. What made the match so offensive to me wasn't its poor quality, it was the desperation of TNA to manufacture this sense of irony. It reminds me of what WCW did back in their dying days. They realised the company was in trouble, they started doing all these terrible worked shoots, they started rebooting the company and switching the belts and taking the belts off people for no reason. They threw all logic to the wind in order to make a desperate grab for publicity, and that's all I can really compare what TNA are doing to right now. And finally, just my final point on this, and I swear this is my last point on this. When did wrestling fans stop becoming fans? Because our job isn't to critique the business of these promotions. We just have to enjoy it and say how much we enjoy it and gauge why it was good and, you know, encourage debate and discourse. If you genuinely thought that you were impressed with TNA for doing this, then you must have been impressed with their many monotonous years of John Cena leading the company in WWE because he sold the most merch. Brilliant business strategy. Terrible entertainment, brilliant business strategy. It's the same thing. You must have agreed with Roman Reigns going over Triple H in the main event of WrestleMania 32. It's what the wider majority of fans wanted, you know, the kids, the casual fans. As fans and as, you know, our own little critics, we really don't want to be looking at what's good in terms of business. That seems to me very soulless, and to maintain a sense of integrity, we really should instead look at the value of what's in front of us. And to me, Matt versus Jeff had pretty much zero value from that standpoint. Right, that's the end of the serious part. Let's get on with the rest of the fast car. Now over to the world of MMA, because the main event of UFC has been all changed around. John Jones tested positive for doping, I believe, which left his opponent, Daniel Cormier, without a fight. Anderson Silva, who is 41 by the way, has stepped in on 2 days' notice, but that fight, crucially, is no longer the main event of UFC 200. Now, Brock Lesnar is in the main event against Mark Hunt. So that's massive ramifications over in the world of UFC, and it could potentially lead to even more ramifications in the world of pro wrestling as well, because obviously Lesnar is main eventing SummerSlam. Alright guys, bit of breaking news now that we've realised after we filmed Fast Count, so this will be spliced back into the footage. We're not now really sure what the main event of UFC 200 is. It could be Brock Lesnar v Mark Hunt, it could be Daniel Cormier v Anderson Silva, but the one that's been recently reported and has apparently been confirmed by Dana White himself is Miesha Tate, the women's champion, v Amanda Nunes. So who knows at this point, but apparently the women's match is the right one. Next up, over in Lucha Underground, the promotion had the first of their 3 sort of pay-per-view shows, Ultima Lucha Dos. We had the first installment of that this week, and it saw a sort of mini tournament between Tejano, Son of Havoc, Brian Cage, and The Mac. Now, if you want to go and watch that without spoiling any results, I will say that it featured some incredibly over-the-top, ludicrous brawls. It's going to be very subjective, of course. If you like that sort of thing, brilliant. If you don't, fair enough. But I'll just point out there were cinder blocks, there were people going through office doors, there was a guy drinking beer and pretending to be Stone Cold, there was a guy pretending to be the Honky Tonk Man. It was absolutely insane. I'd urge you to watch it at least and then make up your mind. And as Chris said, and as we pointed out the other week, there was loads of flippy shit as well, and we all love flippy shit. Now, we're gonna, as Ross would say, flip reverse it and go on to all of this week's WWE news instead. So as mentioned previously, Brock Lesnar will be fighting at SummerSlam and his opponent has been confirmed. It is the Viper, Randy Orton. This is obviously a strange one because Orton's been on the shelf for a while now, but when he went out He wasn't really main event level. He was kind of, obviously he's got all the pedigree and history behind him, but he wasn't on the level of Lesnar. He didn't have that aura anymore. Now suddenly they've brought him back, and it's quite a controversial one. A lot of people are unhappy with it because Orton really isn't seen at that level anymore. It could be a great match. It depends how rusty Orton is, of course. And it also depends on whether Lesnar gets utterly knocked out at UFC 200. So there's a lot of variables. It's interesting, but I'm cautiously pessimistic this time. Ooh. Now, WWE's Cruiserweight Classic Series is about to start, and they've already released the brackets. There was a network special called Bracketology, in which Mauro Ranallo and Daniel Bryan looked in depth at a few of the competitors. It was very, very interesting, and I learned a lot about some of the guys that I was less familiar with as well, so I'd urge you to watch that. Now, the brackets have done a good job of keeping everything a little bit unpredictable. Usually, the danger in pro wrestling tournaments is you can chart yourself a clear path to the final for sort of one or two guys. Like last year, the WWE World Title Tournament, which saw, you know, a clean run for Roman Reigns on one side of the bracket and Dean Ambrose on the other, and that's exactly what happened. Luckily, WWE have learned from that mistake, and you know, there's a lot of unpredictable things going on. The most intriguing first round matchup is Johnny Gargano v his tag partner Tommaso Ciampa. Those are two guys that you'd expect to go far in the tournament, and one of them is going to be out in the first round. And finally, another big matchup has been confirmed for Battleground later on this month. John Cena, Enzo Amore and Big Cass v AJ Styles and The Club. That's a very interesting one because it puts Enzo and Cass on sort of a higher level than they've ever been so far. It also gives The Club a little bit of a chance to shine. Hopefully they won't just be bodies thrown in there. And I personally predict that John Cena, or at least Team Cena, will win that one, leading to a rubber match between Cena and AJ at SummerSlam. Now for all of this week's delicious takeaways. There's no joke this time. I'm just trying to skim through because I rambled quite a lot back then. So cheers. First of all, I touched upon it before, but the outcome of Brock Lesnar's UFC 200 fight this weekend really could change the booking plans of WWE. If he loses, would they put Orton over to sort of demonstrate that, yeah, you know, Brock was defeated in a different entire medium, but that can carry over into the world of pro wrestling? Will they put Orton over if Brock wins? We all know that Vince McMahon can sometimes be a little bit bitter and may try to establish his pro wrestling guy as being better than, you know, an infamous now MMA guy as well. Second up, Ring of Honor have just announced their first UK tour in over a decade. This is a pretty big leap for the promotion, and it really signifies their intent going forwards on a more global scale. Obviously, they've had recent ties with New Japan Pro Wrestling as well. But yeah, as I said, these are the first dates they've done in the UK for 10 years. The dates will be in November at some point, and I can see those shows going down very well. Obviously, the UK scene is a lot more indie than the mainstream sort of American scene. Fans appreciate chain wrestling, you know, hard hitting, strong style stuff, all the things that Ring of Honor often can excel at. So I'm really excited for that one. And finally, I started with that rant, which went on a bit longer than I anticipated, about the Hardy v Hardy match. So we're going to bring things around full circle and talk about the New Day's visit to the Wyatt family's compound. Recently, it was announced that the Wyatt family have invited Xavier, Kofi, Big E to their compound, and honestly, I think WWE could do their own version of the final deletion, and I hope to God, I hope that if they do that, they absolutely nail it. I hope they make it logical, fantastically directed, brilliant action. I hope they do what TNA did, but on a far better scale, because that would justify, you know, me, and I just can't live without, you know, occasionally pretending that I'm right. Just let me have that, please, for once. Just let me have that. That's all we've got time for this week on the Fast Count. Don't be too harsh with your backlash after what I said at the start. I've been Jack from WhatCulture.com. You can hurl abuse at me on Twitter at Jack_the Jobber, and I'll see you soon.